Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell, for another Elite 11 team reveal ahead, guys, of Game Week 28. And in this week's video, we've got Andrew joining us once again. So do please smash a like on the video and subscribe as we take you through Game Week 28 plans and also look at some potential forward replacements for Mateta and Cunha. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. Guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while, so it's great to be back recording. And Andrew, welcome back, mate. It's been a little while for yourself as well. Can see the graph on the right-hand side then, mate. The floor is yours. Talk to me about how the season's been going since the last time you and I spoke.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, I mean, it's been up and down. I'm good. My team ain't so good. Yeah, February was a tough one. It was all when did we last speak to each other? It must have been about game week 23 or so. It's probably just before that double game week announcement, and most of us engaged managers hopped on the assistant manager chip in that game week 24, I think it was. And I kind of wish I hadn't heard about that announcement on the Friday and just kept with the plans, because that triple captaincy on Salah would have been good, and hopefully February would have been a little bit better. But you know, looking onwards and upwards, 11 game weeks to go, and I'm keen just to have a little bit of fun with it. Obviously, a lot of chips still in play, so we'll see where we get.
Yeah, man. So to let me just reflect then. So you joined in game week 23, and what followed was a colossal red arrow. So that seems to be par for the course with coming on my on my videos. Let's see whether or not we can buck that trend this time.
I think that might have been Chris Wood's hat trick. So yeah, that was fun.
I mean, it's funny. The assistant manager chip could have gone worse for some people, but I actually managed to put it on Mikel Arteta. I'm a West Ham fan, so even when West Ham win away at Arsenal, they still manage to cause me pain even when they win. So things could have been worse, mate, and hopefully that gives you a smile as well. But look, you've got lots of chips still remaining, Andrew. We got, like you say, 11 game weeks left of the campaign, and I want to talk to you. You're right around the kind of 440k mark, similar for myself, I'm sure similar for some of the guys watching. So I want to talk to you about how we're going to have some fun with the remainder of the season and see whether or not we can make some huge gains. Let's talk around your plans. So let's quickly take a look back and see how your team got on in game week 27. Okay, Andrew, so I can see here we've probably got some grim reading here for game week 27, and I'm definitely right there with you as well. And guys, we should say on this week's video, we are going to be talking around what to do with these forwards who seem to have picked up suspensions and injuries. The FA Cup had no mercy, did it, for us all. So Andrew, this is game week 27. I think last time I spoke, I was telling you to play Anthony Robinson at all costs in every fixture. You've done it ahead of coming back on the channel, and he's rewarded you with a donut, hasn't he? So let's reflect there first of all. The defense seems to be pretty solid though, Andrew. Any kind of concerns for you defensively that you want to talk around first?
Well, I guess it's just having a look at Hall going forward. Just saw the news today that he's out for the season, so he's going to be one that's going to need to be moved on. Sadly, obviously didn't have a game in game week 29 anyway with the blank, so you know it doesn't change too much in terms of the defensive plans for the next couple of weeks. But after that, yeah, he obviously just becomes one that is a lot easier just to get rid of if you're not quite sure which of those defenders to move on.
I see. And Robinson, to talk to me, a bit of an ignorant position here, Andrew, as well. I'm an owner as well. Was he just rotated out? Do we know? Was he just a benching, managing his minutes? Is there anything to be concerned about there?
Yeah, I'd like to think it was just about sort of managing those minutes. He's obviously played a lot of football, and I mean, who knows at the end of the day. He's played very, very well. I'd be really surprised if, you know, he wasn't straight back in for a good, decent run of fixtures. So I wouldn't be too worried about it, to be honest with you.
No, nor me. I mean, I think what we want to do, guys, actually is move quite quickly on to take a look at Andrew's game week 28 plans, because quite a lot of the conversation is going to be around prospective moves. And look, I can't imagine you want to be looking backwards too much actually in the rear view mirror. This is all about looking forwards, right, Andrew, and planning for game week 28. and blank game week 29 and how to use the remaining chips. And I want to have a conversation to you as to whether or not there's any wish to potentially deploy one of those chips in a single game week as well. So let's move this quickly on and see how you're set up with your bus team for game week 28, excuse me. Okay, guys, so we can see quite clearly now we've actually got the fixtures on screen. As Andrew mentioned, Hall has now picked up that long-term injury. Goodness me, they've had some rotten news with Anthony Gordon being ruled out of the cup final, haven't they, Andrew, with the sending off? They've now got Hall injured as well, and problems there. But this is how your bus team looks currently. You've got one free transfer, but some money in the bank as well. What are you thinking, Andrew? Is this going to be a one transfer move? Is it a hit? What are your kind of thoughts around how best to manage this particular game week leading up to the blank game week in 29? Where's your head at, mate?
Well, the original idea was to save the transfer this week and go into the blank game week with two transfers. Obviously, looking at this, I really wish I hadn't brought in Cunha last week and just stuck with Raul. I had the luxury in game week 27 of having an extra transfer that I could make and still be able to field 11 players in blank game week 29. And I used that luxury. I sort of saw an opportunity in Cunha last week and went, you know what, there's a high ceiling there, potential high ceiling, and I'm going to take it. I figured he'd, get more than Raul would. And even with bringing him in last week, I'd still be able to field 11 in blank game week 29. Unfortunately, it's all just gone haywire in the last week with that red card, with injuries being picked up, and it just makes it even more frustrating that all of this has happened in a weekend where it wasn't even Premier League being played. So Mateta kind of hobbling off. I think that was a knee issue there. Obviously, Cunha with his red card. Hall is out now. We've got doubts over Isak's fitness too. So yeah, it's not looking so great in terms of all of the flags there. But I mean, I could technically still roll this week. Cunha could just go to the bench, and I could play Dango, who plays away at Spurs this week. I don't mind doing that move. My only worry there is if an Isak or a Matoma does miss out, or anyone other players, those attackers I do have, then I've just got nothing really to speak of in terms of the bench to cover for them. So I think the sensible move this week is to move Cunha on, just simply because, he's not available for those next four at least. And I'm obviously going to need those extra players for game week 29 now. Unfortunately, it means I now am looking at taking a hit for game week 29 just to field 11 players.
I mean, it's wild variance, isn't it, in terms of the move, bringing in Cunha, who's got, like you say, this upside, clearly their best player, excellent high ceiling in FPL that's been proven in multiple games over multiple seasons. It's desperately bad luck and, appended to with the news around Matoma and Hall respectively. So I sympathise massively, Andrew. I mean, is there any temptation in your head at all to go nuclear, bearing in mind the overall rank and potential for upside of a wild card, early wild card now, and looking to try and see how that could coexist with the remaining fixtures? Or is that an overcorrection to what's been a pretty wretched run of circumstance for you?
I think it would probably be an overcorrection. I don't plan on doing anything too wild, and I think you can make good enough gains just by going with slightly different picks. You don't need to change that whole team to creep up, obviously, in the ranks. It does mean that I am going to need to take risks and have a little bit of fun with it. If I was, and we will have a look at the forward options and obviously chat over, where we think we might be able to make those picks given, the injury to Mateta and Cunha's red card. But I don't think I'm going to change the plans too much. I mean, an early wild card, yes, it's an option, but you're obviously then going to be trying to load up on players that do have a fixture in game week 29. And then all of a sudden, those players, you don't really want post game week 29, and you haven't got the likes of Salah, etc., who perhaps don't play in 29. So I'm not going to change it up too much. I'll have a look at going with slightly left field picks, and they don't need to be crazy.
No.
Matoma was one of them 2 weeks ago. I brought him in not last week, the week before.
Good pick.
And scored for me in that first week. Sadly, didn't this past game week, I think. But I was quite happy with that pick. And, it's not a crazy pick. And we'll have a look also at the stats for them in our last slide too. And he features in there. So, but one that obviously not everyone is thinking about. And it's those kind of picks that I'll probably just try and jump on for the rest of the season. Just those slightly different ones.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I was actually wondering whether or not if you would press that nuclear button of the wild card in 28, it would actually be with a plan to double down and free hit in 29 and set your wild card up to try best to kind of, see yourself through as best you can. But it's probably fool's gold, isn't it? It's probably an overreaction, I would say.
Yeah, look, I don't think the team, even with all of those flags in them now, I don't think the team is that far behind what we will see for the majority of the teams in 29. It may just mean taking one hit to make sure that I'm not falling too far behind those players that may be using their free hit. I just see more value in that free hit personally, probably in game week 34, and being able to stack my transfers around that game week so that I don't have to worry about, not being able to field players in that game week.
I see, mate. Makes sense. You are entirely sensible in your responses. Let's see if I can trip you up with this one then. What about the potential of a triple captaincy in game week 28 on Mr. Salah in the home game to the wretched Southampton? Any interest there?
It's tempting.
Yeah, man.
It's tempting. It kind of gives you sort of Haaland game week 2 vibes, doesn't it? The Ipswich at home and those players who did go and obviously, really happy with doing so. I have thought about it briefly. It's the temptation of using it in double that obviously just, makes the most sense. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I haven't had a look too much at exactly who I'm going to be playing it on in those doubles coming up. I want to have a much better idea of what those doubles look like, given the FA Cup results, etc., for the doubles, post game week 33 or in whenever it is. I've used the assistant manager chip, so it's not one that I need to worry about sort of, using at a double game week. So I can't use other chips. I can't use my triple captaincy. So I think that's likely to probably go on a double game week. Although before the deadline on Saturday, I will be, just double checking it where I might play it and could be tempted.
Yeah, join me. I have to give you a heads up. I'm going to do it. I'm gonna chuck it in there. And in game week 28, I don't probably need to extol the virtues of Mo Salah in a home game to Southampton, right? But we are recording. When is tonight? Wednesday, right? So there's action that's taking place, of course, in the Champions League, and there's minutes to be concerned. The title isn't yet over, but feels like that's going to become a procession pretty quickly. So I don't know. I thought there was something in there, and I didn't love any of the options down the stretch. But I won't push that too much. Andrew, we'll see what decision you come to.
I do like the fact that it's being able to zig when everyone else is zagging in terms of that triple captaincy, and it's those kind of moves that you probably do need to make with a game week with an overall rank of 400-500k.
Yeah, man.
Where you can hopefully make up the moves, make up the rank.
That was where my head's at, and I guess if you're going to go the other way and use it in a double, will there be a temptation to say, look at the kind of second most viable option in terms of fantasy football fixes, projected points and what have you, and actually, like you say, just try and ultimately there's got to be a gamble or two down the stretch with the 11 to go, and there'll come a point, right, where you'll need to bet against the field a little bit. Is that kind of what you're thinking in relation to the triple captaincy chip? It might go on like I don't know what a good example would be maybe a Phil Foden instead of an Erling Haaland type situation. Is that what you're thinking? You might go that way.
Absolutely. And I think another argument for it is that there's obviously room for backfiring, but it feels, I mean, whoever you're triple captaining, it's probably going to be the most obvious option in that game week. And a lot of other, fantasy managers are obviously going to be simply captaining
Of course.
that player.
Exactly.
So you are obviously only scoring their singular score, if that makes any sense, above them. So it shouldn't be too huge. The risk should come down slightly, although it is obviously over 2 game weeks in a double. So it feels a little bit like the triple captaincy is one where you can take a little bit more of a risk over, say, one of the other chips where it could hurt a lot more.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah, it feels like the jeopardy's a bit less, doesn't it, for sure? Okay, so you're set up. I mean, I'm looking at the rest of the guys in the team, Andrew. It looks actually like a lot of these players you'd pick in an optimal side anyway. So I guess that is a pretty compelling reason not to go for kind of anything nuclear as well. So what we have, though, threatened for a while, guys, is to talk around these kind of forward replacements. So if you're in a position where, like Andrew, you've got Cunha, shape problem in your side, or a Mateta who's been doing well as well, we've pulled together some options in terms of prospective replacements for those forwards. Okay, guys, so we've got 4 options that we pulled together here from Fantasy Football Fix's suite of data, which of course you can go across and look at if you haven't already. I'd encourage you to do that. And we're looking for those kind of budget to mid-priced options, I guess, for Mateta and Cunha respectively. And we pulled out the options: Beto from Everton, we've got Raul Jimenez, who Andrew's just talked around previously as well, Chris Wood having this great season, and then Marmoush in at Man City as well. And we're looking at the value, got a pretty big range there of 5 through 7.2 million respectively. Games, minutes, goals, XG, assists, and expected assists respectively. And then their fixtures you can see at the bottom. So, Andrew, you're in a position where you're going to probably have to respond to this, like you say. Any of these people leaping out at you? Can you get to them all in one move should you wish to do so? Or is price prohibitive? What's your kind of leaning here with these 4 guys?
No, I should be able to get to any one of them. I think I'll have a budget of 8.4.
Sweet.
I think it is
fine
for my forwards. So, all of them are, within range. It's quite a funny one. I mean, if you look at that graph and the history of over the last sort of 5 game weeks or so, it is Beto that kind of jumps out at you, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And it's just, he's not the sort of player that I would usually go for. But I mean, the same could be said for Chris Wood. I didn't go for him, and look how that's worked out. So maybe it's worth considering. I don't how well owned is Beto. I mean, he is only at what, 6% or so owned by managers.
It's a good question. I don't know. It's his ownership, particularly
his ownership is still really, really low. So might make sense. 5 in the last 5, I think it is. Everton obviously looking good. Look, he's got some plum fixtures coming up in the next 2 with Wolves and West Ham up next. Look, it turns sour from game week 30. There is a run of a good 4 or 5 games where Everton are going to have a hard time against Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, City, and Chelsea. So bit of a horrendous run after 30. But I think a lot of managers who will be getting him in now will probably be looking at wildcarding pretty early after that game week 30. So could just be a short-term option, and obviously one that plays in game week 29, which is the kicker, and it's a plum fixture against West Ham at home.
It really is.
So makes sense.
I also think there's a money thing, right? Like 5 mil for a playing forward with those 2 fixtures in 28, 29 respectively. Even if you then, like you say, when those fixtures turn less favourable in 30 and beyond, presumably you'd have a playable option in the defence and or midfield, and you could just rotate him out if you didn't fancy him in the Merseyside derby or the home game against Arsenal, and you've got free transfers to think about as well. So he seems to be the standout, right? Do you think, could you go back to Raul Jimenez? We're going to look at the stats in a moment, or Chris Wood or Marmoush. Do they interest you at all, or is Beto just the clear kind of winner and recommendation here?
Yeah, I think the other one there is probably Marmoush, and it's just simply because I need to look at players now who have the highest ceiling, essentially. It doesn't feel like your Raul's... I mean, Wood is a safe pick. Look, if I was sitting inside the top 150,000 at the moment, I think I wouldn't think two thoughts about it. I think Wood would be coming in just simply from a rank protection point of view. I mean, he's going to be, 70, 80% owned by game week 29, given the fact he plays, I think it might be Ipswich in game week 29.
That's right.
So,
yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, if you are looking to protect rank, you're doing fairly well. I think it just makes sense to bring Wood in. It's, sensible pick. Don't overthink it. I am in a very different position where I'm not going to gain any rank by bringing Wood in. I am obviously risking another massive red arrow if he does well in the game weeks, in the next 2 game weeks where I don't own him. But unfortunately, those are the kind of risks I need to now try take, and I need to try go for players that have a high ceiling. Now, Everton they don't strike you as a team that has a high ceiling when it comes to their strikers. But having a look at the last 5 game weeks, they have scored 2 or more in 4 out of those 5. So the potential is there. And obviously they are good fixtures. So if they've scored 2 or more in 4 of the last 5, it doesn't mean they can't score 2 or more in the next 2. So funnily enough, Everton probably, and Beto specifically, probably does have a double digit in him over the next 1 or 2 game weeks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not so sure Raul does, and I'm also just starting to worry a little bit about his minutes actually. Muniz seems to be creeping in a little bit, just in terms of, I mean, he's always a 70-minute man. When he does start, he obviously comes off early, but he has been rotating a little bit more recently too. So I think come this last sort of third of the season, we're probably going to see a few benchings for him coming up.
Yeah, I don't love that Brighton away fixture for them either. In 28 for Fulham, I think Brighton have improved from my reading recently as well. So I don't love that fixture. And if you're asking me which is a more preferred fixture out of a home game against Tottenham or a home game against West Ham, as poor as Spurs have been, they've also improved. So I think over the 2 fixtures, I'd say that Everton win pretty comfortably fixture-wise as well. So, and he's cheaper. So yeah, I kind of would concur with that. Marmouche-wise, I just wanted a quick read on that then, Andrew. I've not seen a lot of him play. Do you think he makes, it's hard obviously to predict Pep's thoughts, but do you think he makes Pep's current strongest 11 with everyone available?
I mean, we can only go off the data that we've got. He's only been around for 5 game weeks, but he has started all 5 of them.
That's right.
The only worry there, obviously, is that he's blanked in 4 of those 5, and it's only the Newcastle game that he's come up trumps with a hat trick. So obviously the high ceiling is there. The worry about him obviously is with Haaland back in the team. What is his position, and is he going to be as valuable an asset? So there is that worry about him. I suppose it's just that history and legacy that comes with Man City, and knowing that if they turn it on, they can score a hell of a lot. So the ceiling is there, but if I am putting my sort of thinking cap on, Beto just probably looks a safer bet, if that makes any sense.
Does.
I mean, it seems a bit crazy saying it, but it depends how risk adverse you are and how much you want to roll the dice with someone with Marmouche, and just hope that you do get that 1 in 4 or 5 games that he goes nuclear.
Yeah, I guess there's the option to consider Beto for the next 2 and then move to him for the Leicester game in 30. That could be viable, right? You're talking around a 2.2 million difference. It's not insignificant, is it? So there'd need to be some hiving away of that money. But it feels like you're kind of coming down on the assessment that all that green in column 1 for Beto is enough for us to be recommending him as the pick should you need to move from Cunha or Mateta.
Yeah, cool. I think it's just simply seeing how lowly owned he is means that it makes that decision a whole lot easier for me. I think if he was a 20, 30, 40% zone forward, then I'm going to have to go, how much is that going to help me if he does come through?
Yeah.
So I do really like that he's a low-owned player. He's been doing well, 5 goals in the last 5 game weeks, good fixtures. Why not?
Yeah, why not indeed? All right, that's cool. Let's take a look at some stats, Andrew, and see if there's anything in the data that can back up or make you reconsider those picks. Okay, guys, so this is the stats roundup from the last 4 games. Just a quick reminder, these are stats per 90 minutes, and the players must have played 180 minutes or more to be included. So I'm going to come to the shots one first, Andrew, and we can see Raul Jimenez, super impressive there as well. Cunha, of course, in there, but needs to be moved out as well. But it's actually Cole Palmer I wanted to talk around. Obviously, we've just spent some time talking around the forwards there. He's gone off the boil, hasn't he? I think that's fair to say in terms of his returns. They've got great fixture in game week 28 and beyond. What do you think, Cole Palmer? Is he a reasonable make weight to get to another big hitter, or are you thinking actually he's proven to be great value and we just need to chill and keep hold of this guy? What's your read on Cole Palmer?
I'm going to be chilling and staying with him. Look, those thoughts may change come my wild card in a few game weeks. I think that wild card's likely to happen in either 30 or 31, just depending on how many more injuries I pick up in the next couple of weeks. But I think Palmer's staying there for the next few. He was really, really unlucky against Southampton. Honestly, he could have had 2 or 3 goals. And it's just a confidence thing at the moment. I think once he does put one in the net, then more will follow. Football's funny like that, and unfortunately for him, he's just having one of those runs where nothing seems to be working for him, and it's a confidence game. All he needs to do is put one of those away, and all of a sudden he's back on form. So I don't think he's going anywhere for me. Having a look at shots, it doesn't obviously tell the full picture. Those shots could be coming from anywhere, but if you are using the eye test as opposed to the data, and you watched that Southampton game, for example, where I'm sure a lot of you captained him, he was just simply very, very unlucky.
Yeah, no, I get that, mate, definitely. Isn't it interesting, of the ones that we picked out in the forwards, though, Andrew, we didn't talk about João Pedro or Brighton at large. And looking at João Pedro's XG over the last 4 and expected FPL points as well, do you think he's a viable option as well? What do you think about João Pedro, or is it just the fixtures kind of rule him out? What's your read on João Pedro, Danny Welbeck, Brighton as an attacking force? Any kind of thoughts or recommendations there, or is he an avoid? What do you think?
Yeah, he's a funny one. I haven't looked at him much and considered him much, to be perfectly honest, just with Danny Welbeck coming back. And obviously, there is that argument that he's perhaps a better option with Danny Welbeck in the team. I don't know. He's one of those ones who's also very, very streaky, and you just need to jump on him at the right time. He seems to have 2 fantastic game weeks and then go completely off the boil, and then another 2 fantastic game weeks like he's had in 26 and 27. So have we missed the boat there?
Maybe.
That's kind of my thinking. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm also just not quite sure about the minutes or positioning. So, you are quite reliant on penalties with him there too. So he's not one I'm going to be considering myself. I think
Beto's better is what we think, right?
Yeah. It just makes more sense. I think if you are looking for a cheap forward, Beto is cheaper. And numbers say he's a better option at the moment.
And plus, Brighton play Fulham in game week 28, as we can see on the right there, and also the XG conceded would suggest that Fulham's defence is still pretty tight, right? Being bettered only by Arsenal in terms of expected goals conceded over the last 4, and then it doesn't get any easier for them in game week 29. They do have a fixture, but it's against Man City, so as porous and as curiously poor as they've been, it's still not an easy fixture by any stretch of the imagination. Fair enough, mate. Look, anyone else leaping out from you here, or have we kind of wrapped up your kind of options around the attacking options? And if so, I'll follow that up with a question as to what transfers are you going to be making ahead of game week 28, Andrew?
Yeah, nothing else really jumps up out at me there. Obviously, Fulham being second on that X goals conceded there, kind of comes back to what we were chatting about earlier with Robinson. I mean, he's always going to be a threat. I'm pretty sure he'll be straight back in the team. He's had his rest. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to move him out at the moment, especially when, you consider the options that you'd be moving him on to. I think Munoz makes the most sense at the moment, but he doesn't play in game week 29 though. So, where else are you going to go? So definitely would be keeping hold of him there. And, having a look at Arsenal, Fulham and Liverpool being in the top three there, those are, the three defenses I have players from. So again, there's another reason just not to go nuclear and change it all and just try and make those small tweaks along the way, and by just going with those lowly owned players that you think could creep you back up.
You've convinced me, mate. I'm not going to try and, I've the devil on your shoulder enough over the course of this season, and look where it's led us. So I won't do any more of that. And in terms of transfers, then, are you going to be making one in the forward line? You mentioned possibility of a hit, or is it just the one move? What's assuming all things remain the same until the end of the week? What transfers are you expected to be making?
I think it's just going to be the one this week. Sadly, Cunha does need to go.
Yeah.
And I can field 11 players that I'm quite happy with fielding this week for game week 28, and it would mean that I could go into 29, obviously with two transfers, but I'd still be needing to make the same transfer because Cunha's not going to be available. And my bench is just far too thin now with all of those flags there, and there's obviously worries about certain players playing like Mateta. Obviously, I haven't seen anything else with regards to the knock that he picked up on the weekend. Not 100% sure about Isak at the moment. I would think he plays. Obviously, Cunha not available, Hall not available. I've got Dango in the side too. Now, with Evan Nilsson back, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about his starting there too. So I've got no choice but to hang on to him for the next maybe 3 game weeks until a wild card. So I don't have the luxury of banking transfers at the moment, sadly. So Cunha's going to go, and it'll be one of those ones that I've mentioned previously, but kind of leaning towards better having a look at all of that.
Yeah, makes sense, mate. Well, look, very best of luck for game week 28. Let's hope that it results in a big green arrow rather than a red one since the last time we spoke, mate. Look, any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, I think the only other one is perhaps going a little bit different with the captaincy over the next few weeks. It's been another reason why the season has been so difficult to make up ground is just the form of Salah. You can't go anywhere else except him on the captaincy call. So it's really, really difficult to try and go, okay, well, let's go with someone a little bit more left field and try and make up some ground if we can, if that one comes in clutch. So I will be trying to take a few more risks on the captaincy because it is a good way to go against obviously highly owned players like Salah, who will be captained week in, week out. And on the off chance that they don't do well and your captain does, you're going to make up some serious ground. You just have to pick your weeks. So obviously Salah is at home to Southampton this week. There's no ways you're captaining anyone else there. So you just have to be a little bit sensible about it.
I don't know, man. Could I was whether or not I could tempt you to back yourself on the Cole Palmer's going to suddenly find form against a very porous Leicester. That would be a hell of a move. A hell of a move to do with Mo Salah playing a home game against Southampton with the form he's been in. So I'm not going to push that one too hard, mate. It's been a pleasure. It's been great to catch up. Thanks for all your thoughts and advice and recommendations for the forward quandary that people are in who own Mateus Cunha or Mateta respectively. Hopefully everyone has enjoyed that. Of course, it's been great to have you back on, mate. Cool, man. Okay, guys, hope you've all enjoyed the video. Do please smash a like. If you have done, leave a comment down below for myself or Andrew, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And guys, we'll be back with you after game week 28 has concluded. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.